We remember Problem Child 2 as pure childhood chaos turned into outrageous comedy. But behind the slapstick laughter, real lives were already beginning to unravel. Some cast members quietly disappeared from Hollywood, while others were taken far too soon. Their stories became heavier than the jokes they once delivered. And once you hear what happened next, the movie will never feel the same again. John Ritter as Ben Healey. John Ritter was born on September 17, 1948, in Burbank, California. At 43 years old, he played Ben Healey, the well-meaning, overwhelmed father in Problem Child 2, 1991. His performance anchored the film emotionally, turning loud slapstick into a fragile portrait of parental exhaustion, responsibility, and love. That fragile balance echoed his own formation. Growing up as the son of country icon Tex Ritter and actress Dorothy Faye, John absorbed discipline and expectation early, learning to survive pressure by converting tension into timing. That instinct later surfaced not only in Three's Company, but also in darker, more restrained work like Sling Blade, where humor gave way to quiet empathy. Success, however, amplified the cost at home. Ritter married actress Nancy Morgan in 1977 and became a father of three while juggling relentless television and film schedules, including long runs on projects like Hooperman. The marriage slowly eroded under absence and fatigue, ending in divorce in 1996, just as professional demands intensified again. A second chance at stability arrived with Amy Yasbeck, whom he married in 1999 after years of working together during the Problem Child era and later sitcom appearances. As Ritter rebuilt a calmer family life and returned to mainstream popularity with 8 Simple Rules, he was unknowingly living with a severe, undiagnosed aortic condition. On September 11, 2003, John Ritter died at 54 years old after suffering an acute aortic dissection and undergoing unsuccessful emergency surgery. He was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, closing the circle near where he was born. With an estimated $20 million net worth, his career stood as a triumph. Yet his sudden death left Hollywood confronting how abruptly a familiar, comforting father figure can disappear mid-scene. Michael Oliver as Junior Healey. Michael Oliver was born on October 10, 1981, in Los Angeles, California. At just 10 years old, he played Junior Healey, the uncontrollable, violent-tempered adopted son at the center of Problem Child 2, 1991. His ferocity powered the sequel, transforming Junior from comic nuisance into the film's primary engine of chaos. That intensity reflected a childhood shaped by work rather than choice. Entering the industry at age 2, Michael moved rapidly from commercials into feature films like Problem Child, learning performance before identity. Fame arrived faster than emotional grounding, leaving little space for normal development as public attention closed in. As visibility peaked, pressure turned inward. Financial disputes with his mother manager escalated into a high-profile lawsuit involving Universal Pictures, dragging family conflict into the courtroom. Even as roles in projects like Drexel's Class followed, trust in both family and industry structures had already fractured. The aftermath pushed him away instead of forward. Trapped by the junior image and unable to transition into mature roles, Michael stepped back from acting as a teenager, choosing withdrawal over repetition and burnout. Today, Michael Oliver is 45 years old, living a deliberately quiet life outside the entertainment industry. His estimated $500,000 net worth, largely preserved from childhood earnings, supports a private existence defined not by reinvention, but by distance from the fame that arrived too early. Amy Yasbeck as Annie Young. Amy Yasbeck was born in 1962 in Blue Ash, Ohio, United States. At 29 years old, she played Annie Young, the supportive, stabilizing mother figure in Problem Child 2, 1991. Her performance softened the film's chaos, grounding the story with emotional credibility and giving the dysfunctional family a sense of warmth that kept the comedy from tipping into cruelty. That calm presence was forged through early loss. Yasbeck's father died of cancer when she was still young, a trauma that forced her family into financial strain and pushed her toward independence far earlier than planned. Leaving college before graduating, she moved to New York with little security, relying on discipline and resilience to survive auditions and rejection, slowly carving out a reputation for reliable comedic timing in television and film, later visible in projects like Wings and Robin Hood, Men in Tights. As her career stabilized, her personal life began to intertwine with her work. While appearing in films such as The Mask and maintaining steady television roles, Yasbeck grew close to actor John Ritter, whom she first met through Problem Child. What began as professional familiarity deepened into emotional partnership, offering her a rare sense of stability within an industry known for constant upheaval. They married in 1999 and built a quiet family life while Ritter experienced a late-career resurgence on television. That fragile balance collapsed on September 11, 2003, when Ritter died suddenly during production of 8 Simple Rules, leaving Yasbeck widowed and a single mother overnight. Grief quickly hardened into determination, leading her into a prolonged legal battle over medical misdiagnosis, even as she withdrew from acting to focus on survival and parenting. Now, Amy Yasbeck is 64 years old, selectively active in the entertainment industry while dedicating significant energy to heart health advocacy. With an estimated $16 million net worth, derived from decades of work and legal settlements, her life reflects endurance rather than retreat, shaped by love found late, lost suddenly, and carried forward with quiet resolve. Jack Warden, as Big Ben Healey. Jack Warden was born on September 18, 1920, in Newark, New Jersey, United States. At 71 years old, he played Big Ben Healey, the sharp-tongued, streetwise grandfather in Problem Child 2, 1991. His lived-in authority grounded the film's exaggeration, adding generational weight that made the comedy feel rooted in experience rather than caricature. That authenticity was earned the hard way. Growing up during the Great Depression, expelled from school, and later shaped by brutal World War II service as a paratrooper, Warden's youth was dominated by survival and physical hardship. Those early battles translated into performances defined by quiet toughness, visible decades later in landmark works like 12 Angry Men and Brian's Song. With time, recognition followed, but so did unease. Warden reached career peaks with Oscar-nominated roles in Shampoo and Heaven Can Wait, yet aging in Hollywood brought anxiety about relevance and financial security. Even as he delivered powerful performances in respected films like The Verdict, he sensed the industry slowly shifting away, leaving veterans to fight invisibility as much as competition. At home, commitment replaced comfort. Married to Vanda Dupre from 1958 until his death, the relationship endured long separations and personal strain without ever formally dissolving. Earlier struggles with alcohol and later declining health quietly narrowed his world, eventually forcing him into retirement as heart and kidney disease took hold. Finally, Jack Warden died on July 19, 2006, at 85 years old, from heart and kidney failure in New York City. He left behind an estimated $10 million net worth, earned across more than 100 film and television roles. His burial was private, fitting for a man whose legacy rests not in spectacle, but in performances that carried the weight of a lifetime lived without shortcuts. Gilbert Gottfried as Igor Peabody. Gilbert Gottfried was born on February 28, 1955, in Brooklyn, New York. At 36 years old, he played Igor Peabody, the abrasive, eccentric authority figure in Problem Child 2, 1991. His presence sharpened the film's anarchic tone, adding a layer of discomfort that pushed the comedy beyond harmless mischief. That intensity was forged early. Growing up in a working-class household in Brooklyn, Gottfried learned quickly that being loud was a way to be noticed. He began performing stand-up comedy at 15, grinding through clubs before landing national exposure, first through Saturday Night Live and later through high-profile television appearances that established him as a fearless comic voice. Momentum carried him into a prolific career that refused to stay in one lane. While mainstream audiences embraced his voice work, most famously in Aladdin, Gottfried continued to appear in live-action films, television, and late-night shows, including steady work throughout the 1990s and 2000s. Even when controversies cost him commercial endorsements, he remained in demand across animation, cult cinema, and long-form interviews, later reinventing himself as a respected pop culture historian through his podcast. That creative persistence unfolded alongside a rare personal stability. Gottfried married Dara Kravitz in 2007, and together they raised 2 children, a grounding force as his health quietly deteriorated. For years, he worked while managing type 2 myotonic dystrophy, a degenerative neuromuscular disease. He kept private, continuing performances, recordings, and guest roles even as physical strength faded. Sadly, Gilbert Gottfried died on April 12, 2022, at 67 years old, from recurrent ventricular tachycardia complicated by his long-term neuromuscular illness. He was laid to rest at Kensico Cemetery in Valhalla, New York, his grave marked with the words, "Too soon." With an estimated $8 million net worth, his legacy endures not in silence, but in the enduring impact of a voice that refused to soften until the very end. Ivanne Schwan as Trixie Young. Ivanne Schwan was born on November 14, 1983, in Seattle, Washington. At 8 years old, she played Trixie Young, Jr.'s bold, fast-talking companion in Problem Child 2, 1991. Her performance injected warmth and unpredictability, counterbalancing the film's cruelty with genuine childlike spontaneity. That confidence was developed under constant supervision. Managed closely by her mother, Schwan's childhood revolved around auditions, rehearsals, and sets, leaving little room for ordinary routines. Early visibility in films and television quickly made her recognizable, but it also accelerated emotional maturity before she had a chance to form distance from the industry. As she grew older, opportunities narrowed. Attempts to extend her career beyond childhood roles met resistance, even as she continued working in television appearances and stage productions. Eventually, the pressure to remain visible conflicted with her desire for stability, leading her to step back rather than fight for relevance in an unforgiving transition period. Stepping away did not mean retreat from creativity. Schwan redirected her focus into music and live theater, releasing an album and performing in stage musicals, finding expression without the constant judgment of the camera. Motherhood later reshaped her priorities further, anchoring her life outside the public gaze. Today, Ivanne Schwan is 43 years old, living privately and fully removed from mainstream entertainment. With an estimated $1 million net worth, accumulated through early acting income and later ventures, her story reflects a quieter outcome of child stardom. Lorraine Newman as LaWanda Dumore. Lorraine Newman was born on March 2, 1952, in Los Angeles, California, United States. At 39 years old, she played LaWanda Dumore, the bizarre, antagonistic eccentric in Problem Child 2, 1991. Her performance leaned into discomfort and absurdity, sharpening the film's satirical edge and making the adult world feel just as unstable as the children causing the chaos. That sharp comic instinct was shaped early by pressure and rejection. Raised in a Jewish family that had experienced migration and instability, Newman gravitated toward performance as both escape and identity, studying improvisation in her teens before being rejected by elite drama schools abroad. Returning to Los Angeles, she helped found The Groundlings, where discipline and competition hardened her voice long before fame arrived. Breakthrough came fast and painfully. As one of the original cast members of Saturday Night Live from 1975 to 1980, Newman gained instant visibility, earning an Emmy nomination and national recognition. But success carried a cost. Living far from home, relentless scrutiny, and internal rivalry contributed to eating disorders and a deepening heroin addiction during the show's peak years. Leaving SNL did not end the struggle. Through the 1980s, while appearing in films like Stardust Memories and later Coneheads, Newman battled substance dependence and depression, watching opportunities narrow as her health deteriorated. Sobriety in the late 1980s marked a turning point, leading her to rebuild quietly through voice acting, most notably on Rugrats and later major animated features. Now, Lorraine Newman is 74 years old, still active through voice work, writing, and selective appearances, including Saturday Night Live anniversary projects. With an estimated $7 million net worth, her career stands as a survival story, one that moved from explosive fame to near self-destruction and finally toward longevity earned the hard way. James Tolkan as Mr. Thorne. James Tolkan was born on June 20th, 1931, in Calumet, Michigan, United States. At 60 years old, he played Mr. Thorne, the rigid, authoritarian school principal in Problem Child 2, 1991. His uncompromising presence reinforced the film's theme of institutional cruelty, giving Junior a nemesis who felt frighteningly real. That authority was forged through hardship. Raised in a working-class family during the tail end of the Great Depression, Tolkan learned discipline early and carried it into military service with the U.S. Navy. An experience cut short by heart issues but formative in shaping his intimidating screen persona. Returning home, he trained seriously as an actor, channeling physical intensity into performance. Hollywood soon recognized what he could project. Tolkan became synonymous with ruthless authority figures, cemented by his iconic role as Mr. Strickland in Back to the Future, a performance that followed him across decades. Supporting roles in films like Serpico and Top Gun further established him as an actor who embodied pressure, control, and menace without exaggeration. While his screen image was harsh, his private life remained stable. Married to Parmalee Wells since 1971, Tolkan maintained a long, supportive partnership rarely seen in an industry defined by turnover. As roles slowed with age, he transitioned gradually into smaller parts and television appearances, adjusting quietly rather than resisting the passage of time. Today, James Tolkan is 95 years old, largely retired and living away from public attention. With an estimated $5 million net worth, earned through decades of steady work, his legacy rests not on stardom, but on consistency. An actor who turned severity into a lifelong career and endured long after the shouting stopped. Alan Blumenfeld as Aaron Berger. Alan Blumenfeld was born on September 4, 1952, in Rockville Center, New York, United States. At 39 years old, he played Aaron Berger, a sharp-edged, officious authority figure in Problem Child 2, 1991. Though a smaller role, his controlled intensity added friction to the film's adult world, reinforcing the sense that Junior's chaos existed inside a rigid, often absurd system of grown-up rules. That tension mirrored his own early path. Drawn to acting from childhood, Blumenfeld faced constant pressure to justify a career built on uncertainty, training seriously while watching peers choose safer professions. Years of auditions, rejection, and transient work shaped a performer who learned endurance before recognition, gradually building credibility through disciplined character work rather than breakthrough stardom. Momentum arrived quietly, but steadily. Through the 1990s and 2000s, Blumenfeld became a familiar presence in film and television, grounding genre projects like The Ring and later expanding into psychologically complex roles. His portrayal of Maury Parkman in Heroes revealed a darker emotional range, transforming him from background authority into a character capable of unsettling intimacy. Away from the screen, stability held. Married to Catherine James since 1978, Blumenfeld built a long, supportive partnership rare in Hollywood, raising 2 sons while balancing acting with theater and teaching. This grounding allowed him to sidestep many industry excesses that derailed peers of his generation. By 2026, Alan Blumenfeld is 74 years old, still active across film, theater, voice work, and education. With an estimated $2 million net worth, earned through decades of steady employment rather than celebrity peaks, his career reflects persistence, proof that longevity, not fame, can define success. Martha Quinn as Emily. Martha Quinn was born on May 11, 1959, in Albany, New York, United States. At 32 years old, she played Emily, the seemingly perfect date caught in Junior's destructive orbit in Problem Child 2, 1991. The role worked as a cultural wink, blending her pop-era image with the film's dark humor and amplifying the shock of Junior's disruption. By that point, Quinn was already a household name. Rising unexpectedly as one of the original MTV VJs, she became the face of an entire decade, shaping how a generation consumed music and celebrity. That visibility opened doors to acting roles in projects like Tapeheads and Eddie and the Cruisers 2, yet also boxed her into a public persona difficult to escape. Transitioning beyond MTV required reinvention. As on-camera fame cooled, Quinn pivoted toward radio and hosting, steadily rebuilding authority in a different medium while maintaining occasional acting appearances. This shift demanded humility, moving from cultural centerpiece to long-form storytelling without the safety net of nostalgia. Her private life provided contrast. Married to musician Jordan Tarlow since 1992, Quinn built a stable family life while navigating a career defined by constant reinvention. That stability became crucial as professional demands changed and public attention faded. Today, Martha Quinn is 67 years old, actively hosting radio programs heard across dozens of U.S. stations. With an estimated $5 million net worth, built through broadcasting longevity rather than fleeting fame, her story reflects adaptation, surviving the collapse of an era and continuing forward long after the spotlight shifted. Zack Grenier as Voytek. Zack Grenier was born on February 12, 1954, in Englewood, New Jersey, United States. At 37 years old, he played Voytek, a rigid, rule-obsessed authority figure working within the adult system around Junior in Problem Child 2, 1991. His character functioned as part of the adult world that tries and fails to control the child's destruction, making the chaos feel more confrontational rather than purely childish. That sense of discipline traced back to his upbringing. Raised in a household shaped by radio, sound engineering, and structure, Grenier gravitated early toward control and precision rather than emotional display. Formal training at the University of Michigan and Boston University reinforced a methodical approach, preparing him for careers on both stage and screen where restraint mattered more than charm. This discipline paid off in film. Grenier became known for playing professionals, managers, supervisors, bureaucrats, men whose authority rested on systems rather than emotion. Appearances in Fight Club and Zodiac placed him inside morally compromised corporate worlds, where calm voices often hid ethical collapse. Television later expanded that identity. On Deadwood, he played a gambler whose actions rippled destructively through an entire town, while The Good Wife transformed him into David Lee, a senior attorney whose legal power outweighed any moral concern. These roles refined his reputation as the actor you trust to represent authority that feels unsettlingly real. Today, Zack Grenier is 72 years old, still active in acting and theater. With an estimated $3 million net worth earned through decades of consistent work rather than celebrity, his career reflects control, endurance, and the quiet menace of authority figures who never raise their voice. Eric Edwards as Murf. Eric Edwards was born on August 24, 1966, in Topeka, Kansas, United States. At 25 years old, he played Murf, the adult bully and physical enforcer who terrorizes children in Problem Child 2, 1991. His role was explicit, a grown man using size and intimidation against kids, making his eventual humiliation one of the film's most cathartic moments. That aggression contrasted sharply with Edwards's real-life struggle. Coming up through stand-up comedy and live theater, he faced constant rejection and instability, forced to prove himself nightly on stage. Early screen appearances were scattered, building pressure to stand out in an industry that rarely rewarded patience. Work followed through persistence. Edwards carved out roles as oversized authority figures and abrasive adults in films like Sergeant Bilko and The Little Rascals, while continuing stand-up and one-man shows that leaned heavily on self-exposure. His performances often blended comedy with vulnerability, hinting at the cost behind the laughs. Life intervened physically. Edwards lost more than 200 pounds, a transformation that reshaped not only his health, but his identity as a performer. That experience fed directly into autobiographical stage work and smaller screen roles, shifting him from visual punchline to reflective storyteller. Now, Eric Edwards is 60 years old, largely outside mainstream Hollywood but still connected to performance and teaching. With an estimated $500,000 net worth, his life story is defined less by recognition and more by survival, marked by reinvention, endurance, and the long aftermath of playing the villain. Tiffany Mataras and Crystal Mataras as Dolly and Madison. Tiffany and Crystal Mataras were born in 1989 in Greece to a Greek father from Lesvos and a Greek-American mother. At just 2 years old, they played Dolly and Madison, the rude, spoiled twin daughters who torment Junior in Problem Child 2, 1991. Their synchronized cruelty and matching innocence amplified the film's discomfort, turning toddler misbehavior into one of its most unsettling running jokes. That ease in front of the camera began almost immediately. Relocating to Los Angeles as infants, the twins booked national commercials within weeks, then moved seamlessly into film. Early appearances in Kindergarten Cop introduced them as interchangeable child characters, while Single White Female placed them inside a darker adult thriller world, an unusual contrast for performers so young. Success came fast, but pressure followed just as quickly. Represented by legendary agent Iris Burton, the sisters worked non-stop through the early 1990s, appearing in projects like Camp Nowhere and television dramas such as High Incident. Growing up under constant casting demands blurred the line between childhood and labor, leaving little room for a normal upbringing. As adolescence approached, the pace slowed by choice rather than failure. The twins quietly stepped away from acting, opting out before Hollywood could define them solely by novelty. Post-production work on projects like Jack and Jill marked a final, behind-the-scenes connection to the industry rather than a return to the spotlight. By 2026, Tiffany and Crystal Mataras are 37 years old, living private lives far from public attention. With a combined estimated $300,000 net worth, largely from early film and commercial work, their story lingers as a reminder of how quickly child stardom can arrive, and how deliberately it sometimes must be left behind. So after seeing how the cast of Problem Child 2, 1991, has changed by 2026, which story shocked you the most, and which one stayed with you the longest? Fame came early for many of them, but time revealed very different endings. If you enjoyed this deep look at the Problem Child 2, 1991, cast, then and now, 2026, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.